Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and pleased to welcome you all to tonight's September 28th, 2022 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. Now that we are back meeting in person, we are, however, continuing to use our remote capabilities on Zoom and on the town's YouTube channel. So we want you to participate. We want you to join us by whatever means works best for you. Tonight, in just a minute, our Town of Brighton Chief Diversity Officer, Miriam Moore-Burt, will be presenting an update on the work of the town's IDEA Board, the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board, and specifically on the final draft of the IDEA plan that the board has been working on. I do want to acknowledge one of our board co-chairs is with us tonight, Rashid Mohammed, and another one of the IDEA board members, Mark Kakanovich, is with us here. Thank you both for all that you've done, and really thanks to everybody on the IDEA board who have put in a lot of time through the pandemic, making sure we get this right, and I appreciate that. Following the presentation on the IDEA plan, we'll begin the open forum portion of the meeting. That is the opportunity for members of the public to share their comments with the town board. Now, if you're watching us remotely on YouTube or on our cable access channel, you will have to log into the Zoom broadcast of the meeting in order to access the open forum. There are detailed instructions for doing that on the town's webpage at townofbrighton.org. Now, we do continue to make our meetings accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community with our ASL interpreters. Tonight, Ali Fowie and Heather Barsinski are with us. Thank you both. As a reminder, the agenda for tonight's meeting, if you're here in person, is on the back table. If you are watching us remotely, it is available on the town's webpage, and that will include not only the agenda, the proposed resolutions, and all the materials that we will be reviewing in making tonight's decision. We'll start with a pledge to the flag, and I'll ask Councilmember Corrado, if you would, to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Christine. We will now proceed with Miriam's presentation on the IDEA plan. Miriam, the podium is yours. I think we're going to be shooting up here, so I'm going to step down into the audience where I can see.
Good evening. Okay. Supervisor Maley, Town Board members Christine Corrado, Jason DePazio, Christopher Werner, and Robin Wilt. Town Hall colleagues, town residents, and friends. My name is Miriam Moore, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure of serving as the Town of Brighton's Chief Diversity Officer. I have the floor this evening to present what you have come to know as Brighton's Idea Plan: Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Action. Thank you. What can I say? I've learned how to project. Okay, it is with great anticipation and hope that the idea plan be adopted by the board. I'd like to acknowledge the incredibly dedicated group of Brighton residents who have spent countless hours advancing the vision behind inclusion, diversity, equity, and action being central components to the town of Brighton. Felicia Garcia Hartstein, Mike Boucher, Chris Hildebrandt, Amy Hassi, Helen Jones, Mark Konkovic, Catherine Kubiak Rizone, Chris Ross, Cindy Soberaj, and Laura Weaver. Co-chairs, Sarah Johnstone and Dr. Rashid Muhammad. A very special thanks to Town Board member Robin Wilt, who serves as the liaison to the Town Board. Sheila Gaddis, who serves as an assistant to the Town Supervisor. Bridget Monroe, assistant to the Town Supervisor. And lastly, Gwen Inc. and staff for their advisement and guidance in establishing phase 1 of the plan. Each of you should be incredibly proud of the progress that you have made. The IDEA draft plan has served as a roadmap for everything that I do in this role. I'm going to briefly talk about the history of Brighton's Idea Board and the plan, how it came to be prior to getting into the pillars of the plan. In 2019, the Brighton Town Board appointed a group of diverse Brighton residents who showed great interest in matters of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This group was later named the IDEA Board, an acronym for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity Advisory Board. In collaboration with Gwen Inc., a team of advisors, the IDEA Board strategized on changes and implementation with a municipality. In 2020, the IDEA Board introduced a series called World Cafe. These virtual sessions garnered the participation of nearly 100 Brighton residents. In an effort to gauge the needs of the community and bring a holistic focus on making Brighton a better place to live for all residents. In 2021, the IDEA Board synthesized the community comments and feedback, identifying 6 key areas of focus, including targeted goals and strategies for each category. In 2022, the IDEA Board presented the draft plan to the Town Board, which resulted in an approval of the plan in its preliminary stage. One of the major milestones of the draft plan was the hiring of a Chief Diversity Officer in April of 2022. And in May of 2022, the board opened the floor to the public, once again soliciting public feedback on the draft plan. So, after 5 months of observing the internal culture within Brighton Town Hall, forging relationships with internal and external stakeholders, lending my ear to Brighton business owners and residents, and working closely with members of the IDEA Board, tonight's board meeting serves as an opportune time to present the final IDEA plan. The plan's 6 key areas of focus remain the same. You will, however, see notations of change among the plan's goals and strategies. Okay, so the key areas of focus are communication, education, and celebration. The town of Brighton will aid in the delivery of experiences that promote the diverse populations within the town, creating opportunities for a well-celebrated and educated community. Key area number 2, engagement and partnerships, inclusion and representation. The town of Brighton will work to forge relationships and partnerships with key community stakeholders, placing an emphasis on the visibility and voices of the various communities within the town. Key area 3, policies and practices. The town of Brighton's policies and practices will reflect the needs, resources, and services of the town's diverse communities. Key area number 4, economics. The town of Brighton will promote the idea of town residents having their basic needs met. It is also in the town's interest to support the local economy. Key area number 5, public safety. The town of Brighton's public safety agencies will be sensitive to the town's diversity and work in partnership with stakeholders to ensure Brighton is a safe place for all residents. And rounding out key number 6, infrastructure, housing, and transportation. The town of Brighton will be a welcoming community for all. Communication, education, and celebration. The goal here will be the town supporting multiple ways for the community to connect and communicate. Strategies include to ensure that the town communications are accessible, the appointment of a town chief diversity officer, maintaining a channel between the public and town hall, allowing experiences and thoughts to be shared with key town decision makers. Create an internal system mandating the review of mass communications to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion in all town communications. Goal number 2, under communication, education, and celebration. The town will promote cross-cultural, educational, and celebratory experiences. Strategies include support trainings, workshops, and dialogues that are educational, informative, and meaningful to illuminate and celebrate the differences within the town of Brighton. Present mandatory trainings around biases and sensitivities within Town Hall. Establish opportunities for cross-cultural educational experiences with local K-12 schools, colleges, and universities. Convene a celebrations committee to aid the town in highlighting the town's social diversity. Engagement and partnerships, inclusion and representation. The goal of this key area of focus is that the town will work to attract and retain a diverse workforce and will commit to sourcing and showcasing goods and services that reflect the diversity within the town. Strategies include seeking applicants from diverse communities, broadening the scope of prospective recruitment by partnering with organizations, maintaining a working relationship with workforce organizations and other institutions that will allow access to historically marginalized populations. Create a presence and high level of visibility at countywide job fairs, further branding the town of Brighton as a viable and welcoming place of employment for all. Staying abreast of funding opportunities from both local and national streams of unrestricted funds that support diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Securing grant funding to aid in the growth of a diversity, equity, and inclusion team and work being performed for the town of Brighton. Policies and practices. The goal of this key area of focus is that the town will ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are core values made central to the phases of planning, implementation, and evaluation of policies and practices. Strategies include conducting a SWOT analysis in an effort to assess the town government's internal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as they relate to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The implementation of processes that will support the intent of recruiting, hiring, and retaining diverse job applicants. Hiring processes will be reviewed and recommendations made within the confines of the civil service selection process. The development of metrics to show the progress made in each area of focus. Establishing an internal process for the incorporation of inclusive and culturally sensitive language in town documents. Ensuring town staff and elected officials continue to participate in mandatory workshops on topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Report progress annually using qualitative and quantitative data. All town departments will submit plans to centralize, incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into their department plans, creating an interdepartmental plan between the Chief Diversity Officer and respective department heads. Review equal employment opportunity, anti-discrimination, and anti-harassment policies, and complaint procedure forms. Economics. The goal for this key area is as follows. The town will support programs that aid in the economic well-being of town residents and businesses within the town of Brighton. Strategies are noted as such. Increase the usage of New York State and/or Monroe County's registered minority or women-owned enterprises. Support micro-entrepreneurship programs, incubator spaces, and workforce development programs. Explore access to job trainings, apprenticeships, and internships through educational institutions and other community resources. Public safety. The goal for public safety is that the town's public safety agencies will demonstrate cultural competency and professionalism with an overall approach that is fair and safe for all. Strategies include maintaining inclusive hiring practices, continuing training and certification on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and mental health crisis intervention. The collection and reporting of demographics and intervention types for calls, service stops, and detentions in which Brighton police are involved. Maintaining internal forms of communication between the police chief, town supervisor, and chief diversity officer. Infrastructure, housing, and transportation, which rounds out the IDEA plan. The goal for infrastructure, housing, and transportation is as follows. The town will pursue efforts that support the accessibility of affordable housing, buildings, infrastructure, and town parks. Strategies are as such: using incentive zoning to increase development capacity by providing public benefits, the exploration of ways to increase density and affordable housing within the town, the creation of opportunities for redevelopment of main corridors to ensure land use is inclusive, endorse Envision Brighton's recommendations for enhancing community by carefully managing the built environment, protecting the natural resources of Brighton, and creating more safe, well-designed public gathering spaces. Assess the town's infrastructure to identify specific features that may impede accessibility, safety, and community. When undertaking development or modifications, incorporate improvements that improve accessibility for all. Ensure safe public accessibility for all public buildings, property, and streets, regardless of ability or disability, at a minimum to Americans with Disabilities Act standards. Incorporate gender-neutral restrooms in Town Hall. Goal number 2, under infrastructure, housing, and transportation. The town will support the accessibility of public transportation. Strategies include the evaluation of accessibility of public transportation within the town, specifically focusing on individuals who may identify themselves using one or more of the following categories: aging, disabled, economically challenged, English as a second language. Work to enhance Brighton's public transportation. In closing, I'd like to add a footnote. The IDEA plan was developed to be a living document. As members of the IDEA board, understand the relevance of staying attuned to the state of the residents of Brighton. It is important that you know, while tonight's presentation should serve as an official final plan, the plan may be subject to an addendum, granting us room to pivot in our plans. Many thanks to all of you for your commitment and ongoing support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. There is a lot of content there, and it really does reflect the amount of work that our IDEA board members have put in, but it truly reflects, as you said, the work that you have done in just a few short months while being here, engaging both internally, extended meetings with each department head, as well as the ongoing process of engaging with community leaders and stakeholders. That's a big undertaking, and with all of that, you have done a whole lot more in terms of your communication with staff as a whole, and the implementation already, even as we are still not finally completed with approval of the plan, and I'll get to that process in just a moment. But as you go through a number of the items there, starting, of course, with one of the most important, the hiring of a chief diversity officer, which is essential to so much of what we did. About a year ago, we made the decision that we were going to fund that position in our budget. We were successful in hiring you to fill that position, and frankly, I couldn't be happier that we've done that. I'll echo your thanks to our volunteer IDEA board members, not only Rashid and Mark that are here tonight, but all of the folks you named, and all of the other board members that have served at different times since the beginning of the process. I also want to acknowledge the important roles that Councilmember Robin Wilt played as liaison, and also the role that former Councilmember Sheila Gaddis played as and continues to play as my special advisor on DEI matters. Gwen Weber-McLeod, our consultant, the Gwen Inc. team that she brought to the table that, again, was so instrumental. Where do we go from here? The next step, we will take this final draft to the Community Services Committee. Robin, with your, as chair, at our next meeting, and what I then hope is that we will be following that final review, make any final changes, and then take action as a board to adopt the plan. But as you said, adopting the plan is really just another milestone. It's an important milestone. It codifies, if you will, that this idea plan, just as plans that we have adopted in other areas, like our comprehensive plan, like our bicycle pedestrian active transportation plan, are core documents charging the work that we do in so many areas. And just as we use those plans in other areas, in land use, for example, as a key resource for our work, so too the idea plan will be a core plan guiding our work in a variety of areas. And I can't stress enough the breadth and the depth of inclusion, diversity, and equity, how it plays a role in so many different ways in making internally our town government more effective, but also externally as a community, working with the important stakeholders that we have here in Brighton to make Brighton the community. Brighton is already a leader. I think everybody understands and acknowledges that. You look around upstate New York, you're not going to find other towns that have a chief diversity officer. You're not going to find other towns that have an inclusion, diversity, and equity plan. In fact, as we developed this plan, we had to go all the way to Beaverton, Oregon, to find a somewhat, it's a larger city, but a community that had quite a bit in common with Brighton and had also done some leadership work in the area of DEI. So we are leaders, and adoption and then the ongoing implementation of this plan will further solidify our position as leaders in this area. So again, Miriam, thank you so much for your presentation tonight and for your work, and onward from here. Okay, next we will move to the open forum, which as always is an opportunity to address the town board about matters affecting the town of Brighton. Whether or not they're on the agenda tonight, we may not be able to respond to your questions or comments directly, particularly if they do relate to matters not before the board this evening. But I assure you that we do listen and take your input seriously. If you're here in person and would like to address the board during the open forum, once I open things up, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Please come to the podium, give your remarks. As always, whether or not you're here in person or doing it remotely, I will ask that you please state your name and address in doing so. If you're joining us remotely tonight and would like to participate in the open forum, you must, as I mentioned earlier, join the meeting on Zoom. You can do that through the link that is on the town's webpage. If you are there on Zoom and want to participate in the open forum, please use the raised hand function, and again, you'll be called on. Either way, you will have 3 minutes to speak to the board. I'll advise you when you have 30 seconds left so you can wrap up. Please address your comments to the board, not to other speakers or to members of the audience. Please don't use the open forum to make personal attacks of any kind. Our goal here tonight and during the open forum that we hold at every town board meeting is to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts, your feedback, your input with the board, and for us to be able to listen thoughtfully to that input. So I will call the open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board this evening during the open forum? And I don't see anyone either here in person or on our Zoom.
So if we have no participants in the open forum, I move that we approve the agenda.
Second, Christine.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. We have no public hearings tonight. We do have one item of communication that I want to receive and file. Robin, can we have a motion to receive and file that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Tonight, the item of communication that we have is from County Executive Adam Bello, advising the town that we have received a Community Development Block Grant Award for the East Avenue Sidewalk project. This project will be one more example of the town building out our active transportation infrastructure in a way that connects our community together, but also connects our community to surrounding communities, in this case, to the city of Rochester. This project will fill a gap along the north side of East Avenue, basically from the city line, from the interchange of 490 and East Avenue, heading out towards Clover Street. It will pass the Stone Tolan House, fitting as the oldest standing structure in Monroe County. And we will, I think it's important to note, engage with the Landmark Society, which owns the Stone Tolan House, to make sure that this project does not in any way interfere with the great historic character of that property. But again, it is one more example of the town prioritizing and wherever possible seeking outside funding to fill the gaps that we identified several years ago as we developed our active transportation plan, our Bike Walk Brighton plan. Again, an example of the ongoing implementation of these important planning devices. So we are appreciative that this grant will be coming through. One more sidewalk project for your department, Mike. And since we're talking about sidewalk projects, I'm also really pleased to point out that in the past 10 days or so, we have finished yet another gap closing sidewalk project here in the town of Brighton. And that gap was on the north side of Elmwood Avenue from the 7-Eleven store coming towards Town Hall. That is the final gap in the Elmwood Avenue sidewalk system from the city line to the 12 corners. And we will be holding a ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate the filling of that gap on Friday, this coming Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, near the entrance to the Clintwood apartment complex. Just as the last gap that we filled down there made our students in particular, made it easier for them to get to school, this in particular will make it easier for students who live in Clintwood to get to school safely, but it'll also connect us more effectively with all of the retail, whether it's the Walgreens at the corner of Clinton and Elmwood, the Tops Plaza, all of those connections. We talked about it a moment ago. It's important that we support our local economy to build up jobs for our Brighton residents. This will access all of those businesses. So we invite everyone to join us 2 o'clock Friday to celebrate another sidewalk completion. We have a motion and a second to receive and file that communication. Any other comments? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports next. Community Services Committee. Robin?
Thank you, Bill. The Community Services Committee, excuse me, I'll remove this so you can hear me. The Community Services Committee met on Wednesday, September 21st. Among the items that we discussed were under continuing business, park issues. Our Superintendent of Parks, Matt Beeman, reports that field requests are slightly lower than in previous months, but given the growth rates over the past season of the grass, no fertilizer will be spread this fall to try to control the need for mowing. Tree removal has been a challenge, with ash trees failing on park land quite a few times. And given the increase in tree maintenance needs, there will be some application for the new boom lift that the town is acquiring. Another capital acquisition, the new skid steer attachment, will also help in the maintenance of ash tree growth. Seasonal bathrooms will be shut down in parks facilities on October 31st. There is some concern that youth soccer groups are overusing the Buckland Park fields, so we are benchmarking with other towns, and that there is an indication that there's some diversity of policy regarding travel leagues versus recreational and instructional programming fee structures. So given the very high demand for fields and longer seasons and materials costs introduced by travel leagues, staff will be evaluating the need to revisit field rental policies. In our recreation programs, fall restoration enrollment is trending higher than the last time this year in the fall. We continue to grow our program offerings for the community, and we're adding more programs as details are finalized with new instructors. And speaking of new programs and staff, Colin Dolly, our new recreation leader, is offering more full-time staff-led programs, including pickleball instruction, a pickleball league, preschool soccer, and Superhero Saturday. The return of our traditional basketball league with more team offerings and times has been welcome. This is our first time returning to the full league since the onset of COVID. Trunk or Treat returns for this year for an in-person walking event in partnership with Brighton Memorial Library. There will be games, trunk or treating, a petting zoo, and more activities. The event will take place on the front grass and parking lot of the Brighton Town Hall and Public Safety Campus. Brookside conversations continue with the new property owners, and the final report of the feasibility study is in process with our consultants, SWBR. An update to our Winter's Farmers Market. The request for proposals is out, and bids are due at the end of October. The RFP went out on September 20th, and bid opening will be October 27th. Stormwater retention has been performed on the site. Our town crews remain busy working on other site improvements. And again, as Bill mentioned, you can join town officials on 2 p.m. on Friday, since September 30th, for an Elmwood Avenue sidewalk ribbon cutting. Our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board head noted that interdepartmental work has begun with the town's Human Resources and Personnel Department. She has established and submitted a 4-point proposal on procedural changes in human resources, with areas of focus being recruitment, interviewing, and hiring within Brighton Town Hall. It was also identified, a date was identified for our first quarterly internal workshop meeting. That will be November 14th. With department heads, mandatory attendance. And of course, as we saw, the finalization of the idea plan presentation was made tonight, and we will review the final plan in the Community Services Committee meeting and make a recommendation for adoption. In addition to that, our DEI director has been engaging in community engagement with other DEI leaders, religious leaders, educational leaders, and residents on an ongoing basis. An update to our community choice and aggregation and community solar aggregation. Meetings continue with Jewel and NYSERDA to resolve the contract breach of the last CCA, and a hotline for RG&E is still in place for billing issues. An update to our clean energy community priority actions and sustainability funds. An EV grant has been written and will be submitted in anticipation of the Friday, September 30th deadline. And Monroe Avenue GP will be a focus of pollinator habitat. Finally, an update to our council member on your corner. We're happy to be back in full swing as of September 18th. And focus topics have included to date the budget and capital improvement plan and Bike Walk Brighton. And we have more topics upcoming for the remainder of the season. Under items of new business, there was a brief discussion of handling of philanthropic organization requests for support from the town. This was a topic that was raised in the council member on your corner sessions, and we will work directly with the concerned resident now that town hall is open to public traffic without restriction. Another new item, the codification of town board public forum protocol, will be an agenda item that will be moved to our FASC agenda. Finally, our upcoming events that I want to highlight, our semi-annual electronics recycling and secure document shredding event will occur next on Saturday, October 15th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon in the Brighton Highway parking lot. That's 1941 Elmwood Avenue. Our Halloween trunk or treat, again, will occur on Saturday, October 22nd from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. That will be at the Brighton Town Hall Public Safety Wing, 2300 Elmwood Avenue. And on Saturday, October 29th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we'll hold our Drug Enforcement Agency National Pharmaceutical Take-Back event. That will occur at the Brighton Town Hall Public Safety Wing, 2300 Elmwood Avenue. The next meeting of the Community Services Committee will be on Wednesday, October 19th at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside Recreation Center. Please do enter through the Winton Road entrance, and members of the public are welcome to attend. We hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin. Next, Finance and Administrative Services. Jason?
Yes, the Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Tuesday, September 20th. The items that were discussed in committee included the recommended adoption of the 2023 through 2025 Capital Improvement Plan, and also considering the preliminary budget, both of which will be discussed on tonight's agenda and presented. Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 4th. We will meet at 1 o'clock in order to accommodate the Yom Kippur holiday, and we meet in the auditorium here in Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, Jason. Chris, Public Safety?
Bill, the Public Safety Committee has not met since our last town board meeting where we reported on that monthly meeting. The next meeting will be October 11th at 0800 hours. Here in the auditorium. There's also been some discussion of moving the November 8th meeting because of its conflict with Election Day here in the auditorium, that we will move it up a week till the 1st of November, and it will follow, or excuse me, it'll precede the Public Works Committee meeting, which will follow on after the completion of the Public Safety meeting. But otherwise, hope to see the public on October the 11th.
Thanks, Chris. And finally, Christine, the Public Works Committee.
Similar to public safety, Public Works has not met since our last town board meeting. And the next regularly scheduled Public Works meeting is October 4th. That's next Tuesday. We meet at 9 a.m. here in Town Hall.
Great, thank you. We have no old business, new business, reading and approval of claims. Jason.
Yes, Bill, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $808,027.64. Notable claims include to the Brighton Central School District in the amount of $59,586.06, representing payment for the 2021 rental of the Brookside School. Also to CP Ward in the amount of $15,459.60, representing payment for the equipment rental for the Farmers Market project. Also to Hines Concrete Contractors in the amount of $154,758.02, representing payment for gutter replacements on Danbury Circle and a small portion of Roby Drive per contract pricing. Also to M&T Bank in the amount of $33,307.06, representing principal and payment for principal and interest on the sewer project bonds. And finally, to the New York State Municipal Workers' Compensation Alliance in the amount of $49,205.50, representing payment for fourth quarter premiums per contract. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll on the reading and approval of claims.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Chris, would you handle the next one?
Bill, the next item is to authorize the supervisor to enter into agreements with veterinarians and veterinarian technicians for the annual police department rabies clinic in an aggregate amount not to exceed $510. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Again, this is a program we've been doing for many, many years. It's a useful program. We get great feedback from the community, and look forward to being able to do it again.
And this will be October the 8th, is that correct?
Yes.
And you do not need to be a Brighton resident.
Correct.
Bring in your pets and get them vaccinated.
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. I think we discussed
Yes.
that last year and why it is that we do that, because it really does make sense. We want as many people in the broad community to have their pets safe. Okay, we have a motion seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Robin, the next one, please.
Certainly. The next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with Bureau Architects for professional services related to the rehabilitation of the Home Acres Neighborhood Historic Monuments, an amount not to exceed $3,600. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second. Oh, you go right ahead.
Mike, do you want to talk about this briefly?
Sure, Supervisor. I was contacted by the Homemakers Neighborhood Association, and they asked me to take a look at the existing entry monuments for the subdivision. I took a personal look at them. They're deteriorated. I'm afraid there may be some foundation issues. I thought it would be best to have someone who has some experience that has looked at this in the past to do a study and give us a cost estimate of what these improvements are going to take so we can budget for it from future years. So Bureau has done work on those entry monuments in the past. I thought that we'd bring them in. They've given us a proposal for a price not to exceed $3,600 to do the work. Like I said, they're a very experienced company. They'll do a great job for us out there. So we hope to be able to get that report done by the end of the year and then present that either to the board, probably the finance committee, and then probably just plan on future improvements with that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is, as you said, a report.
Yes, just
And
a report.
we will see what their analysis says. I mean, those monuments, I believe, are over 100 years old. The neighborhood is over 100 years old, and you've been doing, some piecemeal repairs, and this is an opportunity to do a more thorough look.
More thorough and more historically correct.
Important. Thank
Yes.
you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Chris?
Next item is to approve the promotion of Nick Valenti from motor equipment operator to construction equipment operator. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Meant to toss that one to you, Christine. Only the first syllable came out.
Talk over one another all the time.
Mike, we talk about it a lot. Internal promotions are really key to why our people do their jobs so well. This is another example of that.
They are key, and we have had a lot of turnover through the pandemic, because of the pandemic, and we've just had a lot of turnover. I think like most municipalities, honestly. So Joe Wesley recently resigned and opened up a CEO position, which is a high-level position. 2 candidates. Nick Valenti has demonstrated good leadership skills. He's come a long way, and absolutely correct. Promoting inside keeps the morale up. We're getting good people who have excellent experience in what we do. Nick will do a fantastic job at the CEO position, so we're excited.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. All right, now we get into the finance stuff and the budget stuff, and I turn to you, Jason.
All
The
right.
next item.
The next matter seeks to approve the certificate of bonding for collection of taxes. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
This is a requirement of state law and something we do every year. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. And the next one, Jason.
Next matter seeks to adopt the 2023 through 2025 capital improvement plan. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
The capital improvement plan is something that we've been doing for many years. It's something we do at the recommendation of the state comptroller. And Paula Parker, our director of finance, and her team are integral in working with all of our department heads in making that happen. So Paula, I'll turn to you for a little overview on this year's CIP.
We took a little bit of a different approach this year with CIP, and we used some very nice software that is going to be part of our online digital budget when that is complete. So it was a bit of a learning experience this year. The department heads did great. It's going to be a totally electronic process from now on. There were a lot of requests. There was well over 150 requests when we first started, and we've pared that back, of course, based on our budgetary constraints and what we see as a prioritized list of the items that we'll be putting into our capital plan. And again, these are for planning purposes. It's our roadmap. It's our guideline, so that we know down the road, in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, the items that we're going to most likely need to purchase, and then develop ways to finance them if possible, or pay for them out of operating funds. The reports are a little bit different this year, as you'll notice. I've done a one-year report that's in the minutes. This would apply to 2023, which again will become part of our adopted budget. It is also part of our tentative budget when that is presented to the town clerk tonight. There is also a 3-year plan that is attached. Traditionally, that's what we've looked at, is a spreadsheet that shows the plan. In each one of these plans, it's the same items that are shown. We're going to show the total request. We're going to show what's operating funds, again, meaning either some sort of offsetting revenue or supported by our tax levy. We'll also show what we intend on issuing debt for. Separating again out grant funds, and then anything that we utilize through reserves or other types of support like in-kind. In-kind is a very important feature of some of our grants. So again, the department heads did a super job. The town supervisor, of course, is always involved in this process. And so we had a little bit of growing pains this year, but I think when we roll into the 2024 to 2026 plan, this process will become a little easier. So.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for the work you do in carrying that plan each year. It does involve a significant increase this year. We're going to talk about significant increases when we get to the tentative budget in just a moment, but those increases reflect some very real cost increases excuse me, on some work, whether it's infrastructure work, whether it's equipment acquisition, software acquisition, that is, I think, essential to our successful operations, our efficient operations, our sustainable operations. All of those areas are addressed in different parts of the capital improvement plan, which this year will involve slightly over $3.5 million in actual current year operating budget funding. Are there any questions concerning the proposed capital improvement plan? I know we discussed it also at our finance committee. And we did have some good discussion of it there. And I know we had, in some cases, so we had to say no a lot. We had to say no a lot. We, both in the capital plan, but in the budget as well. We had some very robust discussions with our department heads, but I can't say enough about the work that each of them put into this capital improvement plan and again into the budget itself. If there are no comments, we have a motion to approve the 2023 through 2025 capital improvement plan. Dan, I'll ask you to call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Manna?
Aye. Next, Jason, I'll go to you again to set the public hearings on the budget.
Next matter seeks to set public hearings for the 2023 town and special district budgets, charges, and assessment rules. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
And those public hearings will be held on October 12th and October 26th at our next two town board meetings. I do want to read portions of our budget transmittal letter, and when I say our, I mean myself, but also Finance Director Paula Parker and Assistant or Deputy Finance Director Suzanne Zaso. The two of you really work so well together and are such an integral part of putting this together. But together, we do present this as the 2023 Town of Brighton tentative operating budget to the community. I really like on this hard copy that we have a picture of one of my favorite places, the Brickyard Trail right here on the car. But it's what's inside, of course, that is so important. Last year when we developed our 2022 budget, we were very much concerned as to what the ongoing impact of COVID might be and how that might influence our operational and spending needs. COVID did significantly affect our operations and our financial position. It continues to do so, although that impact is now greatly reduced. On the other hand, the recent increase in inflation, as well as the accompanying rises in interest rates, are impacting our budget planning this year. The rate of inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, rose by 1.4% for 2020 as compared to 2019. But then it increased by 7% for 2021 as compared to 2020. And as we know, a heightened rate of increase has continued this year in 2022. The town has experienced many of the same cost pressures that your households experience, whether it's for fuel, electricity. We also experienced dramatic price increases in some of our vehicle and equipment needs. Construction materials, a major item of cost increases, and many, many other items. Those price increases are reflected in the 2023 operating budget. We're grateful to every member of the town staff who has worked hard through difficult circumstances to continue to make the needs of Brighton residents their top priority in the face of challenges of inflation, challenges of COVID. Just last week, we received extraordinary recognition of our responsible budgeting and fiscal practices during the pandemic. The state comptroller annually rates the fiscal stress level of every municipality and every county in New York State. While we've always received strong scores on this evaluation, this year, for the first time, the town of Brighton received a perfect score from the state comptroller on his measure of the fiscal stress level of municipalities in New York State. That perfect score reflects not only the strength of our local economy, which was recognized recently when 14618 was recognized as the hottest zip code, not just in New York State, but in the entire United States of America by Realtors.com. But it also reflects the prudent and careful financial and budgetary planning the town of Brighton has maintained even during these uncertain pandemic times. We're proud of this recognition, we're proud of this perfect score, and we are committed to maintaining our strong financial condition with this budget. Now, as a result of those inflationary pressures, we are projecting larger increases in many of our expense lines in the 2023 tentative budget. The 2023 tentative budget for the town's operating funds projects an increase of $649,780 for the property tax levy for 2023. That will be an increase of 3.81% in the operating tax rate, just under 20 cents per $1,000 of your home's assessed valuation from 2023 as compared to 2022, or almost $40 for a home valued at $200,000. Now, your own tax bill may increase more or less, depending largely on special districts like sewer, water, sidewalk, snow plowing, and the like. Under those special districts, of course, the town ensures that only residents who receive districts pay for them. Any changes in the assessed value of your property will also affect your tax bill. Now, that 3.81% increase is far less than the current rate of inflation, but it will exceed our allocation under the New York State tax cap, and therefore tonight we will be setting a public hearing to consider a local law that would permit the town to exceed the tax cap in its 2023 budget. Each year, the open and transparent process that the town uses to develop our budget goes far beyond the state's mandated procedures for budget development and approval. Each year, the development of the budget begins in the spring when department heads prepare their capital improvement plan requests. As we discussed a moment ago, that enables us to plan ahead for important town projects, infrastructure maintenance, and significant capital expenditures. This follows a recommendation of the New York State Comptroller that municipalities prepare a capital improvement plan. Honestly, most towns don't. We think it's an important roadmap, to use the word Paula mentioned, so we can plan ahead for major spending on major projects. The capital improvement plan this year anticipates continued maintenance and improvements to our streets, sidewalks, sewers, our basic infrastructure. It anticipates purchases of vehicles and heavy equipment, technology and sustainability advances for the town, among other important needs. Many of these expenses are funded through grants, through borrowing, or even as incentive zoning amenities. But as I mentioned a moment ago, over $3.5 million of capital improvements are directly included in the tentative operating budget for 2023. While we were beginning work on that capital improvement plan, town staff had also begun their requests under the tentative budget that's being presented tonight. Each department head, each year, presents and submits to the Finance Department a budget request. The town board held 2 budget workshops during August, at which each department head presented their departmental budget request to the board. These workshops aren't required by state law, but again, having open meetings where the department heads present their budget is not only an important tool for us, but it's also an important opportunity for the public to better understand our operational and our financial needs. It's important to stress that tonight's submission of the tentative budget does not end that public review process. Far from it. The Finance Committee will review the budget in an open meeting in October, and the town board will hold 2 public hearings to take public comment on the 2023 tentative budget at town board meetings on October 12th and October 26th. Again, state law requires 1 meeting. We hold 1 hearing. We hold 2 public hearings. And each year, our goal is to approve that budget before Election Day. We think it's important that people know what they're working with when they go to the polls. Copies of the tentative operating budget are available for review in the town clerk's office, at the Brighton Memorial Library, and online at townofbrighton.org. Comments to the tentative budget can be presented at either of the 2 public hearings, but they can also be submitted by email to the town clerk at daniel.aman, A-M-A-N, at townofbrighton.org, or they can be submitted by mail to Town Clerk Dan Aman at 2300 Elmwood Avenue, Rochester, 14618. And comments submitted in writing, whether by mail or by email, will be included in the public record of those hearings. Independent third-party analysis continues to confirm the fiscal strength of the town of Brighton. As I previously mentioned, just this past week, the state comptroller gave Brighton a perfect score under his fiscal stress monitoring system. Moody's, the national debt rating agency, continues to give Brighton a very high AA2 credit rating, one of the highest in New York State. And our independent auditor has again found that Brighton's financial statements have been prepared in accordance with Government Accounting Standard Board's requirements. Despite all of this positive news, we do continue to be concerned with the slow growth in Brighton's real property tax base, particularly our commercial tax base. The total taxable assessed valuation of real property in Brighton rose by only 0.25% from 2022 to 2023. Last year I talked about a particular project whose approval and completion is vital to maintaining the financial stability of our town. But more broadly, maintaining a balance of residential and commercial tax base is important because well-planned commercial development typically places less of a burden on local services than residential development does. And commercial development helps shoulder the burden of costs that benefit all of our residents. Property tax receipts are the largest source of town revenues, but they're not the only source. Another major source of revenue are mortgage recording taxes and particularly sales taxes. Sales taxes are our second largest source of revenue. We receive a portion of sales tax revenues generated from retail sales throughout Monroe County under an agreement among the county, local municipalities, and local school districts. In 2020, sales tax revenues in Monroe County were severely impacted by COVID, but those sales tax revenues have recovered strongly in 2021, and they continue to recover so far in 2022. However, given the uncertainty about the economy, we're making conservative estimates for 2023. Mortgage recording taxes are the most volatile source of town funding because they're tied not only to home building and sale of real estate cycles, but also interest rate cycles. The residential housing market remains strong in Brighton, but the significant increase in interest rates will likely have a negative impact on mortgage taxable transactions, particularly, I suspect, on refinancing. So again, here we're budgeting conservatively for 2023. The town of Brighton continues to focus on reducing costs using shared service agreements. We partner with other municipalities as members of the Finger Lakes Municipal Health Insurance Trust, a consortium of municipalities that collectively procures health insurance for member employees and retirees. We also members of the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, a similar consortium that allows us to obtain lower cost property, casualty, and liability insurance. And you heard reference earlier in the claims about our workers' comp consortium. All of these groups help us ensure the availability of insurance coverage, and when we do that at a cost significantly below open market rates, saving the taxpayers money. Finally, I want to thank everybody again for the preparation of this budget. Developing the town budget is never easy, but the 2023 budget will maintain and enhance town services while finding new ways to control the cost of government. We look forward to your input during the 2 budget hearings in October, and we appreciate the efforts of every community volunteer and town staff member who assisted in the development of this budget. And again, particular thanks to you, Paula, and to Suzanne Zaso, our Deputy Finance Director. So we have a motion on the floor to set those public hearings. We have a little bit of background on where we expect this budget to go. Are there any comments as they relate to setting the public hearing, or for that matter, on the budget message? Hearing none, then I'll ask Dan to call the roll on the motion to set those budget public hearings.
Councilmember DeBonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye, and finally, as I mentioned in the message, Jason, if you would.
Yes. The next matter seeks to set a public hearing for the authorization to adopt a budget commencing January 1, 2023 that may exceed the tax cap. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second?
Any discussion? This is a procedural requirement of the state's tax cap law. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeBonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Christine, the next item.
Yes, the next item seeks to declare the structure at 59 Hampshire Drive as dangerous and unsafe, and to set a public hearing on October 12th for proposed demolition of said structure. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
You have an extensive report that relates to the project based on an inspection by Ed Shiro, our building inspector. But this is something we've worked try not to get to this step. And Mike, I'll ask you to, again, talk a little bit about this matter.
Yeah, we certainly don't relish in these types of requests. We don't want to have to demolish houses because they're in bad condition or they're unsafe. 59 Hampshire has been an ongoing problem for many years. We've had complaints. We've tried to address the complaints, and we were able to address them to a certain extent. Recently, the house has taken a turn for the worst. You saw the report that Ed wrote. There's holes in the ceiling. There's rodents. You can see where the rodents have thrown out the insulation. There's obviously some sort of, I would say, severe water damage to the inside of that house for the roof to be opened up. That's what's prompting the recommendation to demolish the house, because we just don't know how bad it is, and I suspect it's pretty bad in that house. Mold, water damage, and everything else. So we're asking, pursuant to Chapter 51, that we were able to notify the owner, post the house. We'll do that tomorrow, and then demolish the house, set a public hearing, and then if everybody's in agreement, we demolish the house. Again, it is not something we choose to do, but I think it is something that's necessary in this case.
Thanks, Mike. It's a last resort. We set a public hearing to give the owner the opportunity to appear. We've tried to maintain lines of communication there, and the owner still has the opportunity to keep this from happening. But there are some serious items of concern, and they've been identified. I'm going to recognize the town attorney to discuss this as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. So as Commissioner Guyon mentioned, we do have clear evidence that there is a hole in the roof, that the property is unsafe, that the roof itself is deteriorating, that there are rodents infesting the property, all of which are independent grounds for compelling either repair or demolition. In this case, the Commissioner is recommending demolition. Just to give you a little bit of background on this property was owned by a woman by the name of Thelma Michelin, M-I-C-H-L-I-N, who died in March of 1993. And it's been in her estate ever since. A Ms. Projansky from Ithaca, New York, is the executor of the estate. Over the years, we have had ongoing communications with Ms. Projansky and her attorney, and with little success, and that's perhaps an overstatement. Perhaps it's closer to no success in getting them to tend to this property. And it just continues, as the Commissioner has indicated, to deteriorate. The process under Chapter 51 has the town board listening to Mr. Guyon's report and that of Mr. Shiro, and then making a determination as to whether it agrees with that report that the house should be ordered to be demolished. Issuing an order of demolition is what you would be doing tonight. That order of demolition then is mailed by certified mail to the owner of the property. In this case, the tax mailing address for this property is Ms. Projansky in Ithaca. The property itself will be posted with that notice, and a copy of that notice gets filed in the Monroe County Clerk's office. All three of those things occur. And as you indicated, we do set a public hearing. In this case, we're setting a public hearing for October 12th, at which point in time the owners are welcome to come in, or Ms. Projansky is welcome to come in, or her attorney, and explain what it is that they plan to do with the house. The order of demolition gives them 10 days following that public hearing to commence demolition, and 30 days following that public hearing to complete demolition. What we've experienced in the past with similar properties is nothing occurs, and then the town itself initiates the demolition. We go out and get bids and hire a contractor and go ahead and have the house demolished. That expense becomes an expense that goes onto the tax bill for this property and then is recovered when taxes are ultimately paid, or by the county actually reimbursing that to the town, and then the county would do a tax foreclosure if those taxes are not paid. So that's the process. Happy to answer any questions about it.
Taxes have been paid right along, Ken?
No, the taxes, well, let me just take a look. I do have that up on my screen. So, just on the Monroe County Tax Portal website here, I'm just pulling up the payment history. Yes, in fact, you are right. The taxes have, in fact, been paid by Ms. Projansky, including this year's 2022 town and county tax bill. So they're aware, I mean, they're getting the tax bills, they're paying the tax bills, they're just not taking care of the property.
Thanks.
This is not, again, I can't stress enough, this is not something we do often. It is truly a last resort, but we have come to that point where the evaluation of the property really compels us to go down this road, I think. So, any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll on this motion.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Robin, the last item.
Certainly. The final matter seeks the appointment of Mary Katie Hanrahan to the Board of Assessment Review for a term of 5 years commencing October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2027. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
And thank you for your service, and thank you for your willingness to continue for another 5 years. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor. Can I have a motion, please, to receive and file the August 22nd expense and revenue reports?
So moved.
Second.
As always, at the end of the third quarter, in other words, when we complete the September reports, our finance director will make a more thorough report and update on how we're doing. Dan, please call the roll to receive and file the August report.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Matters of the town attorney?
I have nothing further, thank you.
Matters of the clerk?
Just a quick reminder that since the school tax full payment due date is October 1st, which is a Saturday, we will not be here on Saturday. But anytime it falls on a weekend, or if it ever were to fall on a holiday, that moves forward to the next business day. So the actual due date will be Monday, October 3rd. Past practice weirdly has been that some kind of weird human sociology, it will evenly split between Friday and Monday, like almost 50-50. It's very weird. It happens every time. I don't know why. It just does. But we've got the drop boxes as well, which will be emptied over the weekend as well, and we should be all set.
Thanks, Dan. Matters of the town board? Then can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for joining us or for watching us. We'll see you at our next board meeting, Wednesday, October 12th at 7 p.m. Have a great night, everyone.